Here's a few news stories. Let's see if I can dig through the ads. All right. Google is going to upgrade their spam filter with AI, and God knows it needs it. I've found the spam filter to be useless for at least 2 or 3 years. It throws away the good stuff and leaves the spam in the inbox. It used to be very good when Google first bought a company, I think called Postini, that used a crowdsourced system to detect spam many years ago, but they don't seem to have upgraded it in a long time. Google seems to be really resting on their laurels. They just delayed the launch of their AI platform until next year, and they're way behind. Microsoft, due to their investment in OpenAI, is way in front of everybody in AI. All the other models are way behind, and that was amazing. And Microsoft is not known as a tech innovator that much, but they really pulled ahead on AI, which I think is a very wise business decision. And everybody else is scrambling to catch up. Amazon is bringing out one, Tesla is bringing out one, and they're all way behind. So here's what AI startups say grads should know. I thought this was pretty generic, not enormously interesting advice. See if I can get some of the garbage off my screen. But I think it might be interesting to a lot of students. And what they say is you should join an open source project and publish something publicly and maintain it or contribute to some other project so people can see how well you can code. If you want to be a developer, that is certainly the right thing to do. And then they say you should have sense to understand business problems. It's also a very good general plan too. This is, I'm teaching more management classes. It's certainly true that an enormous number of technical people do not understand anything about business or, for that matter, communication, and it holds them back. This I thought was actually quite interesting, although I suppose that's because it fit in with my preconceived notions. But they're asking what majors to do in college, what the good majors are and what the bad majors are. And as you probably know, a lot of students in these classes, if you try to get a 4-year degree in America, it is now incredibly expensive, and you typically take on a huge amount of debt, and you spend the next several decades of your life struggling to pay back that debt. And that's really difficult. And it's especially difficult if you get a degree that doesn't actually lead to a good job. So they say the most regretted majors are things like journalism, sociology, general studies. Education is up there, which I think has got to be one of the most worthless degrees in the world. I've been a professional educator for my whole life, and I come from a family of all professional educators. And the one thing all of us has noticed is everybody who has degrees in education is completely worthless, or worse than worthless. All they know is stupid theories that make no sense, and all they do is ruin your classes by telling you what to do, and everything they tell you is wrong. I have no idea what they teach in education degrees. I've never known anybody with a degree in education that teaches anything worth taking. But anyway, political science, all those are things people greatly regret, I think, because they can't possibly get a job that will pay off their student loans. But the good majors, the ones people don't regret, number one is computer science, which ought to be no surprise. This is where your jobs are. And then things like engineering, nursing, finance. And so I'm glad to see psychology on the list. Psychology certainly should be something that helps you get a good job, and I'm glad it does. But anyway, in case anybody had any questions about it, these are the job-oriented fields where you get a vocational degree that will really get you a job, and you'll be able to pay back your loans. Do I mean emails? No, in email spam detection, I don't know if Microsoft does a better job. It's in AI that Microsoft is doing a better job. Other than that, Microsoft is not particularly an innovator. In fact, they're sort of behind. Yeah, what?
If government worker get a higher education degree, they get pay raise and a level up.
Yes, that's right. If you're in the government and you already have a job, then getting an education will typically let you route to the next level of civil service. That's right.
So it pays in a certain way.
Well, yes, but you won't be able to get into there. Well, that's right. But again, government work is not considered very desirable because the pay is always very low.
Then you're a government job.
You're right. And that's why I've had students trying to recruit people. But you know what happened? I had a guy from FEMA that took my classes, and he kept trying to recruit students to work for government. And when they found out you'd have to quit smoking pot, they wouldn't take it. But you do have to obey rules like that when you join government work. But yeah, anyway, however, I'm glad you asked that question, Eric. Certainly, this is the thing about Microsoft. Microsoft stuff has been considered kind of boring and slow and stodgy and not very innovative and bulky, like Windows and Office. are the standards, but they're not at all revolutionary or trend-setting or ahead. They're like just sort of like standard business products, but their AI is really in the front. This is a place Microsoft hasn't been, I'm not sure, at any time in my life, when they're actually in front of any technological thing, but they really are now.
Microsoft invests like 13 billion, so, you know,
13 what?
13 billion.
Oh, well, they did. They were very smart to invest heavily in OpenAI, and they integrated into their product, and they,
49% of the company.
yes, and they made sure that they had rights to all of it, so that even when OpenAI appeared to be destroyed 2 weeks ago, they said, we can just carry on with our version of this technology without OpenAI, if necessary. So, I mean, they really have positioned them very well. I think the current CEO of Microsoft seems to be very smart. Seems to be doing a very good job. And so here's also more companies. I've been hearing a lot about this in the last several years, and I'm glad to see it. More companies are limiting the requirements to degree requirements, which I think is very important. It used to be just a really common checkbox, have to have a 4-year degree, and more companies are realizing that is completely stupid. That 4-year degree doesn't actually mean the workers are better, and it just screens out a lot of potential workers. So that would be good. All right. Anyway, so everyone has said they expected this, and now there has been a study showing that it is true that there's a mammoth increase in malicious phishing emails because, you know, as we probably all know, for the last 3 decades, the main thing about phishing emails is they're generally written very badly with broken English by people who obviously don't speak English well, and obviously a AI to write well-formed English would be a vast improvement for them, and they're doing it. And they say it's gone up by like a factor of 10. Since a year ago. So that would seem quite logical. So I had difficulty understanding this article. Now, if you go to any website now, almost every website has a little thing that pops up and says, hi, I'm your friendly bot, can I help you? And then you can chat with the bot. And I've used that for all kinds of services, like Kaiser and companies I'm trying to buy things from. But of course, everything you type into that bot is probably being saved somewhere. I don't know why anybody would ever think anything else, but someone is claiming that when they chatted with the bot on the Old Navy website, they didn't know what they sent was being monitored and recorded. And they feel like they're subject to an illegal wiretap because that stuff is being recorded. Now, I don't understand. What do you think is happening when you type into a chatbot? You're sending that text to the company, and they're saving it somewhere. What else would they do? That's why anyway, they're doing it in California. They're claiming that it illegally logs, records, and stores conversations. Perhaps they expect the conversations to be discarded when you're done talking. I guess that would be a reasonable expectation, but I don't know why you would feel like you can expect that really unless they said that somewhere. Anyway, it's a very strange thing. They're claiming this is they're trying against many other companies like Home Depot, Ford, and JCPenney for the same thing, because apparently they do retain that conversation and use it for some other purpose, like, I don't know, marketing, training in AI or something. And this is interesting. You know, all AIs are currently trained on copyrighted data without permission in America, and there's huge lawsuits pending. So we'll see. This seems like a long shot, but the thing is, if they actually manage to get to punish someone for this, then I guess everybody will have to have a terms of service pop up before the chatbot. Ironic considering they usually use bad English or grammar to filter out smart people. Oh, well, I don't know if that's true, Dark. Well, I've heard that. That could be. How is it different from recording conversations in customer service? Well, yeah, but in customer service, they always tell you that, right? Every time you call, they say, your call may be recorded or monitored for quality, so maybe they need to put a similar statement on the chatbot. They need to put a similar statement on your website. I mean, every time you actually buy a product, they record that information, obviously, and they use it to target ads and such. Anyway, it's an interesting issue. It never occurred to me to think anything else. When you send any data to a company, of course they're keeping all that data. What do you think is going to happen? Anyway, so I was, Citrix Bleed, this is a very interesting article by Kevin Beaumont. Kevin Beaumont is a very famous security researcher. He's on Twitter as Rossi the Dog and now Mastodon as Rossi the Dog or something like that. He has a lot of really smart analysis, and he's been consulting with companies to deal with their Citrix Bleed and ransomware problems. Citrix Bleed is, he claims, the biggest vulnerability of 2023, absolutely. This is Citrix product, which is also called NetScaler, which is what many companies use to deliver things like desktops and applications over the internet. Most of the people I consult for are using this product. If you remotely connect to a machine, and Microsoft's RDP is a licensed version of Citrix. They bought it in 2000 from Citrix to put in Windows. So it's what you're using when you're remotely controlling Windows machine. You're almost certainly using Citrix. And Citrix had a very serious vulnerability, which you can exploit. He has the exploit here, which is really amazing. Let me find the exploit. It's down here. The exploit is there. You make an HTTP request to a certain URL, and the host is just 24,000 A's. That's it. That's the exploit. And then what this will do is it will reply by dumping a whole bunch of system memory and sending it to you. And in that memory, you will find secrets like other people's authentication tokens. And this request does not cause anything to be logged. It's not a full login or anything like that. You don't need to log in at all. It's called Citrix bleed because it's very much like Heartbleed that came around about 14 years ago. And one thing I noticed, which he doesn't point out, is it seems to me like it would be incredibly simple to block this kind of attack if you just watch for obviously stupid things. Why do you even let anyone send a GET request with 24,000 characters in this line? You should just have a sanitization where nothing can be more than like 200 characters in any line here. That would seem to be a very simple way to clean out the good from the bad. But anyway, this is what's out there. Now, this was patched a month or two ago, but a lot of people have not patched their servers, which is quite understandable because you put this appliance on the edge of your network like a firewall, and many people don't think about updating their firewalls. They just regard it as a fixed appliance like hardware they don't have to change. And so many companies have failed to update it, and then many companies have been exploited, and it's leading to big problems. Fidelity National patched it late, which affected a lot of financial companies, and another company patched it late, a credit union patched it, a company they all use, that like 60 credit unions use, patched it late and got hacked and got ransomware. So ransomware is spreading like crazy. And anyway, what he talks about here is the main use of this has been to spread ransomware. You could, in principle, do anything with it once you get in. But what they did was ransomware. And he's now talking about how ransomware is just getting worse and worse. And it means that a bunch of very irresponsible sort of teenage hacking groups are getting a lot of money from ransomware payments. And he's been watching who gets hacked, and they're watching who gets put up on the page to embarrass you and who goes down. So they paid the ransom. So he's now calling, this is what he claims to fix it. One thing is product vendors need to secure their software and services. This fits an article that came out from CISA last week that said that you need to make products that not only don't have insecure defaults, like a default password, but that will notice if they've been deployed in an obviously insecure configuration and stop working. It should pop a box saying, you cannot run this product because you've connected the administration panel directly to the internet. You're not allowed to do that. That would be a very good thing. Nobody's doing that now, but if it would just actually stop working and force you to click through boxes saying, I understand the risk, I'm deliberately choosing to deploy it in an insecure way, that would make it much better. Because 90% of the problems are people that just buy a box, turn it on, click, click, click through the menu, and don't understand that they need to do more to secure it. And really, why should they? Why would someone sell you a product where if you do the obvious way to set it up, it's not safe? That would seem reasonable to expect them to do better than that. And the next thing he said is they should outlaw payments to ransomware groups. This is very interesting and very controversial. CISA has begun calling for this, and an international group has begun saying they're going to stop this, at least on the government servers. But outlawing it for private companies is probably illegal. I don't know, but it would be hard to enforce. But I mean, this is probably the long-term solution. He's right, but there'd be so much pain before it got there. It's hard to see how you do it. Anyway, and companies need to see if they can securely manage the technology they've deployed, which is very hard for them. This is the fundamental problem, is that small to medium business especially, and obviously even the largest businesses and militaries, cannot figure out how to secure their stuff. So there's no way in. There's always some holes in your network. And so anyway, it's very interesting to read. It's a very important issue, and he's a very important researcher taking a real extreme stand. This idea of outlawing payment of ransomware, I'm not sure I've seen anybody important suggest that yet. That would be interesting. So it's absolutely true that ransomware keeps getting worse and worse, and nobody seems to have anything remotely resembling an effective response to it. Anyway, that's enough of the news. I'm going to stop this.